Now I'll talk particularly about Austin's speech act theory, which is probably the most foundational theory of speech acts. Austin proposed this theory in one of his most important works known as How to Do Things with Words. And here he identified how words perform as actors, or how we can perform actions through words. He probably focused on the non-declarative uses of the words in a language. Previously, the most of the research in domain of semantics and pragmatics have been focusing upon the declarative or statement uses of the words, where language was thought to be a carrier of meaning or information, and the major purpose of language was thought to convey information. And in this regard, it was assumed that these statements could be judged as true or false. We also generally call it a logical positivist view of language. But Austin went further and talked about some of the uses of language which were not covered by the theories previously proposed. And here he probably pioneered this view that we do perform various actions similar to physical actions through language. And in this regard, there could be many important non-declarative uses of language. In this regard, in order to explain his point in detail, he used multiple terminologies for example, locutionary, illocutionary, or perlocutionary force of a language or a piece of language, which tells us about various actions, apparent or hidden actions, intentional actions performed by a speaker in a language. We'll talk about their details in a while. But all these terminology remain popular and still are popular in the discussions of pragmatics, especially related to speech acts, and they help us to understand the meanings communicated through conversation. For instance, if you look at the examples in front of you, these statements, I bet you 6 pence it will rain tomorrow. I apologize. I sentence you to 10 years of hard labor. I give my word. If you look at all these statements, you will probably have a clue that all these words do perform certain action. They are not mere statements, or their only purpose is not to be judged as true or false. Rather, they are performing certain speech act whose meaning are larger than what the linguistic formation of these words or statements convey to us. For example, they not only they are not reduced to explaining certain states of affairs. Rather, they perform certain actions. For example, the first statement performing the action of betting, and then we have the action of apology. Then we have the action of promise in the third statement, and then we have the action of in the third statement we have the action of announcing somebody's sentence uh, in a judicial way, and then in the last statement we have the action of promise being performed. All these acts are performed through words, and we call them speech acts. uh, let's now have a look at the various facets of speech acts as proposed by uh, Austin has divided these speech acts into three different categories: locutionary, based on their locutionary force, illocutionary force, and perlocutionary force. Let's see what these various forces are. For example, the first one is locutionary force. Locutionary force is, in fact, the literal meaning, the general sense of the word, which is also conventional and is popular as far as the linguistic details of the words contained in an information or statement are concerned. So, this in a general way, locutionary force may be seen as the literal meaning of a statement. Illocutionary force relies heavily on the speaker's intention. This intention may be clear or obvious, or this may be hidden in a statement. Sometimes speaker clearly explains his intention, and sometimes he may hide it in some words. For example, I may say something and I may mean something different. I may say the weather is lovely today to somebody sitting beside me, and I may mean that let's go outside. So intention of the speaker may be different in various situations. Then we have a Perlocutionary Act or force. Perlocutionary Act focuses on the effect or take up of a statement which is uttered by a speaker. For example, when I say it's a lovely weather outside and I mean that let's go outside, the effect could be of acceptance. Somebody accepts that offer or somebody might reject that offer. So perlocution is actually the effect on the speaker, or in other words, what follows an utterance. And there could be difference between illocutionary and perlocutionary acts. In order to explain that further, I give you another example here. If you read the statement on the top that says shoot him or her, this statement literally means the act of shooting somebody, which is very clear from the statement. But this its illocutionary force may be about forcing somebody or about urging somebody or advising somebody to whom you are addressing to shoot somebody else. But its perlocution could be different. It may not result in the action you desire. The listener might take it as a persuasion, might take it as a force that you're compelling him or her to do that, or it may be seen as a fear. He may be frightened by listening to what you say. That if you say somebody shoot him or her, he may be frightened that what kind of thing is being talked about. So the effect or perlocution could be different. I give you another example from our own language, Urdu language. You must have heard this statement, "Tum zara bahar niklo." I think all of you might have heard this statement once or more times in your life. What does that mean? If you look at its locationary force, it looks like a kind of request to somebody to come outside or kind of order to come outside. But intention of the speaker could be of somehow a kind of order or a kind of force to come outside. But simultaneously, perlocution could possibly be taken as a threat. We all know in our context when somebody says, "Tum zara bahar niklo," that means a threat, a clear threat that you come outside and I'll see you there. Uh, so, uh, words, when they are uttered, may have a different literal meaning and may have a different illocutionary or perlocutionary force. Similarly, the statement, bus driver, if a bus driver says, "This bus won't move until you boys move in out of the doorway," it may have a different literal meaning. It have different intention that the driver probably wants the boys to come inside the bus instead of standing in the doorway, and it can have an impact or effect or perlocution of a threat to the boys standing in the bus doorway. The identification of the illocutionary force may depend on the stage of the discourse also, that at which stage of the discourse something is being said. For example, there is a very common word or term in English language, okay. We all use that as a second language users also. This can act as something which is appreciating something. We say okay. This may be a continuer when somebody is talking and we say okay, and that's a probably a continuer and indication that you carry on with your discussion. I understand it, or you are allowed to continue. And that may also be seen as a pre-closer. When you say okay, that means try to finish it. I have got what you mean to say. So it would depend on the stage of the discourse at which some word is uttered to understand the intention of the speaker and to understand the real meanings or the speech acts being performed that by that particular word or statement.